Back Look Cinema, the podcast.
I'll get you the case, but the price has got to go up. If it's going to be amateur night, I want $100,000 up front. I want it in a bank account. I want another $100,000 when you get the case. What's up, y'all? My name is Zoe. It's spelled Z-O or Z to the O for those of you outside of the U.S. Welcome back, friends. This is the 178th episode of Back Look Cinema, the podcast, where we take a look back at the movies of yesteryear, especially the movies of the latter half of the last millennium. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, and tell that totally normal, unassuming guy waiting in that car over there. Yeah, tell that guy who's totally not scoping out the area and has no ulterior motive for waiting in this car about Back Look Cinema. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate you. And I want to announce that I'm still struggling to watch Strange Days. Or at least I was as I was writing this episode. But then a couple of days later, I was able to watch it. It was kind of a struggle. It was on a streaming service and I didn't have like great internet. So there were points where the video had stopped, but it was passable. So I'll be doing that next episode. But this episode, we're going to be talking about a movie that I had seen once before. And I hadn't seen it since. I hadn't seen it in probably 20 years. And the reason I wanted to talk about this movie is because I was recently on a show called Not a Bomb Podcast. And we were talking about a movie that Robert De Niro was in. He was in a movie with Eddie Murphy called Showtime. And during the podcast, they had asked me basically what my thoughts were about Robert De Niro. And the funny thing was that I was drawing a blank on the Robert De Niro films that I had seen. I know I had seen some. I even covered some in the podcast, but at the time, I was drawing a blank. And for some reason, the only movie that I could think of that I saw that Robert De Niro starred in was Ronin. And I forgot all of the other movies that I had seen. Like one of my favorite De Niro movies was Untouchables, but I didn't think of that one. And another great movie that he was in was Cape Fear, but I didn't think of that one. But I did think of Ronin, even though I have to admit that it wasn't one of my favorite movies. As a matter of fact, when I first saw the movie, I felt like I know that I watched a good movie, but it wasn't really clicking with me like at the time. And I always planned on watching it again to see if I could, get more from it. It's like, what was about the movie that made me think that it was a good movie, even though that I personally felt that it didn't click with me, like what was missing. And so I wanted to revisit this movie, find out what didn't work before, and if it'll work this time, if it'll work on a rewatch. Because sometimes a movie will work on a rewatch. And sometimes movies have to be watched a couple of times in order to get everything out of it. And sometimes it works that way. And I think that is the case with this particular movie. And the movie that we're going to talk about right now is Ronin. Now, I know and you know that a Ronin is what is called a masterless samurai. So samurai, they work for feudal lords, and they are warriors. But if something happens, like their feudal lord is killed, or for some reason they're dismissed from service, they become warriors without a master. They become masterless warriors, and they're referred to as Ronin. But what I just found out is the word Ronin literally means wave man, like a sea wave, like as if it's used to describe an itinerant samurai who did not serve under a daimyo, the Japanese feudal lord. And hence the samurai would move around as being cast about by the waves. A wave man. So that's interesting. And I'm also learning that Japanese is kind of a funny language. I'm following this Instagram / TikTok account. And it's these two guys talking to each other. One of them appears to be Asian, but I'm not exactly sure what his exact nationality is, and the other one is Japanese, and they're going over the Japanese language. And so he's asking the Japanese guy about different terms, and usually the terms they're different words, but they're different words in English, but in Japanese, they sound nearly identical. And if they derive comedy from some of the words that are vastly different, but sound identical, as at least to English ears, they sound identical in Japanese. So it's just a funny way of looking at language. But anyway, I only brought that up because of what Ronin means. Nobody really, I haven't actually heard about people talking about the word Ronin meaning literally wave man, as if it's a person that's cast aside by the sea or traveling as though they're being pushed by the waves. And it makes sense, Japan being an island culture, a sea culture. And there's a lot of sea iconography and imagery in artwork and literature in Japan. So that being said, let's work our way to the opening credits of Ronin. 5 former military and intelligence experts from various countries are hired by a shady Irish group to steal a valuable package from a rival organization. The main contact for the Irish group, Deirdre, is willing to pay these 5 experts an obscene amount of money to retrieve this package. She won't reveal the contents or nature of the package, and the situation is fluid enough that the group doesn't even have a fully fleshed out plan as to how the retrieval will happen. The 5 experts don't know each other or each other's competency, but one operative, Sam, an American, is determined to find out as much about the others in his group as he can, and to find out about the package. Naturally, the heist goes horribly wrong, as there is a traitor in their group who succeeded in stealing the package for himself. Ronin was released September 25th, 1998, produced by FGM Entertainment and United Artists. It grossed over $41 million in the US and Canada on a reported budget of $55 million. This is a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And because I had no idea that this film bombed, and I thought it would have made so much more money. And if you adjust it for inflation, then that means that if it were made today, the movie would have grossed over $80 million, and the budget would have been, the budget for the movie would have been $104 million. And that's kind of crazy because it really has a huge international appeal, and I didn't see that it had like international box office numbers. You would think that it would have, since it had some actors that are from abroad. So it seems strange to me that they never released this movie internationally. They probably would have been able to make a profit had they done so. So I'm going to just take it as they didn't release it internationally, which again is kind of wild because it had some international stars. First, let's go to the star of the movie, Robert De Niro. He plays Sam, and each member of the group had like a kind of a job. So I'm going to put down that, like, the job that they have. So Sam was the tactician. He's basically the professional who people suspect was probably a member of the CIA. And he's very good at tactics and espionage techniques that you would need to pull off the type of heist that they're trying to pull off. Sam is really good at seeing the competency of the other people in the group. Robert De Niro, you've probably seen him in Cape Fear or Backdraft, another one of my favorite movies that he's in that I couldn't think about when I was on that other podcast. And I actually covered Backdraft on episode number 33. You may have seen him in The Irishman or Untouchables. I covered that one in episode number 72. And more recently, he's been in Killers of the Flower Moon and Joker. Jean Reno, an international film star. He plays Vincent, and he's what I would call the tour guide. He's a guy there in France, and Vincent is a Frenchman, and he knows the area very well. He knows the country very well. They're in Paris, and he knows Paris very well. He knows the region very well. So if you need to get someplace or you need to talk to somebody, if you need a contact in France, that's the guy you go to. Jean Reno has been in movies like Leon, The Professional, The Big Blue, The Pink Panther, Godzilla from 1998, which I forgot I forgot about that movie. He was great in Godzilla from 1998. I kind of have a soft spot for that movie. And he's also been in Mission Impossible, and I covered that one in episode number 95. Natascha McElhorne, she plays Deirdre, and I think of her as the client. She's basically the woman in charge of hiring all of the operatives, but she's not like the boss. Like whenever the operative, particularly Sam, needs something extra from her or is asking her questions and she doesn't know the answer, or he's asking for more money and she needs to get authorization for it, then she has to call her own boss. But she was in charge of hiring all of those guys. And then she disseminates information to those guys about the mission that they're hired to do and the location of the thing that they're supposed to take. And she has like the broad plan. And then those guys are in charge of like basically coming up with the details of what they're supposed to be doing in order to get the case. You may have seen Natascha in Solaris, The Truman Show, Big Nothing, or Mr. Church. Interestingly, the only movie I've seen, that she was probably in, that she was in was The Truman Show. And I say probably in, I mean, I did see The Truman Show. It's just that it's been so long that I've completely forgotten all the details from that movie. Stellan Skarsgård, he plays Gregor, and I think of Gregor as the technician. He's the IT guy. He's the tech guy. And, later in the film, it turns out that he is the traitor. And you may have seen him in Good Will Hunting, Amistad, or Dune Part 1 and Part 2. Very good. He's very good at what he does. I think that now, as I'm recording this, I think we're all getting ready for the role that he's about to, we're all about to see his performance in a TV show called Andor, where he's very good in Andor, and what's interesting about Andor is that he plays a very similar character in Andor as he does in this movie. Sean Bean plays Spence. Spence is the arms dealer. And when I first saw Sean Bean pop up on the screen, I was like, oh, I guess he's going to die early. We get to see him die again, because the big joke about Sean Bean is that he's like, every time you see him, he dies in the movie. It's like, if he's not the outright adversary, if he's not like the bad guy in the movie, and where you know he's going to die at the end, if he's like in the middle of the movie, or if he's one of the so-called good guys in the movie, he's probably going to die before the end of the movie. That tends to be his fate. When you see him in the movie. So like when we were watching Game of Thrones, he was in Game of Thrones. We should have known that he was gonna die by the end of that first season. but we didn't know. We at least nobody who didn't read the books didn't know. There's actually another movie where he didn't die. That was Troy. He played a character that didn't die in that movie. He was also in Equilibrium. I covered that one in episode number 94. And GoldenEye, which is, I'm kind of waffling as to whether or not I want to do that on the podcast. I think I have an affection for that movie only because of the video game, the Nintendo 64 GoldenEye video game, and which I loved. I love that game. And I think my love for that game inflates my love for the movie. I don't know if I like the movie all that much. I have to watch it again and see. Skip Sudith plays Larry. He is the driver. He's also the guy that you go to when you need a vehicle. He's the guy that gets the vehicles. But he's a driver. He's a very good driver. And there's a very interesting bit of trivia about Skip Sudith that I'll cover when we get to the trivia section. And it specifically regards driving. And you may have seen him in the Third Watcher TV show, you probably know him from that more than anything else. Otherwise, he's been in movies like Blow the Man Down and The Hunted. Michael Lonsdale, he plays Jean-Pierre, and you may have seen him in Day of the Jackal or Moonraker. Jonathan Pryce plays Seamus O'Rourke, and you probably seen him in Tomorrow Never Dies or Brazil. I think I first seen Jonathan Pryce when he was doing the Infinity car commercials, when they were first introducing Infinity to America. And he was the guy that they chose to hawk this car. And I think I remember him from that more than anything else that he's done. This movie was directed by Jonathan Frankenheimer. You may have seen some of his other movies, such as The Manchurian Candidate from 1962, The Island of Dr. Moreau from 1996, 7 Days in May, Reindeer Games. I seen Reindeer Games. I had fun with that movie. French Connection 2, or The Iceman Cometh, which is a highly regarded film, and apparently it's based on a book. I haven't messed with either of those things, the book nor the movie. But he's a well-regarded director. He's directed some fancy things. This movie was written by J.D. Zeke and David Mamet, also known as Richard Weiss. Zeke has written The Touch, and he wrote Witchblade TV movie, and those are pretty much all of his writing credits. At least in regards to films, he may have written maybe another television movie or something like that, but he doesn't have a robust cinematography or writing credits. And Mamet, I say that he's also known as Richard Weiss is because he is not directly credited on the film. They basically changed his name. So what happened is that David Mamet, he worked on the film as a script doctor, and he rewrote a significant amount of the script, making major changes to character dialogue from J.D. Zeke's original. There was a dispute among the studio, director John Frankenheimer, and the WGA over the credit, with MGM and the WGA insisting that Zeke be given story credit and billing over Mamet. And they wouldn't back down. So Mamet asked that his name either be removed or placed under a pseudonym. So the pseudonym they chose was Richard Weiss. So when you see the film credits, it'll say story by J.D. Zeke and screenplay by J.D. Zeke and Richard Weiss. Richard Weiss is known for other movies such as House of Games, State and Maine, Glengarry Glen Ross, which is a great movie. I need to put that on the list. I think that is on the list. I need to cover that movie. He also did Rag the Dog and The Untouchables, which we already established is a great movie. So he has a robust film credit. So I have no doubt that a lot of the film, a lot of what we see in the finished product is due to his writing. The music was composed by Elias Miro. He has also done the composition for movies such as Splinter, The Mandela Effect from 2019, Bones, a great little movie called Battlefield Earth, and Stigmata, and he has a bunch of other credits. So that's it for the opening credits. And as for my announcements, please once again check out the shop at backlickcinema.com/shop. And still working on that other thing from eBay, Bazaar de Alonso. And I am currently working on another podcast appearance. The podcast is Movie Lovers Unite, and we are going to talk about The Warriors, a movie that I had not seen, but it is oft talked about. So I'd like to finally watch the movie and see what everybody is talking about. Now that that's out the way, let's talk about our favorite parts. So, it was not that easy coming up with like the themes for this movie, but I think it's got themes of competency, because competency is a big thing in this movie, where it's like where Sam is trying to go around just to see how competent his co-workers are, his associates are. And then there's the thing about trust, and then there's the betrayal of trust. And I think that is a running theme throughout the movie. These are like broad themes, but I think that's what we're dealing with in this movie. So going on to talk about some of my favorite parts, I do want to note that this movie was beautifully shot. That was one of the first things you notice about it. And like, remember I said, I knew that this was a good movie, but that it did not actually click with me at the time. And I think upon this rewatch, I kind of got some of the things that I didn't get the first time. One of the things about this movie is that it doesn't hold your hand. Like, like in the previous couple of movies that I talked about, they had they kind of had some exposition at the beginning of the movie, like a blurb that kind of laid out what was going on, giving you the broad strokes of the story, the world building that was necessary in order to bring you into the story. Like on the Dark Crystals, like high fantasy. So yeah, you're going to need some exposition on what's going on there. And some other movies, the Highlander, you're going to have some exposition to kind of explain the situation with the immortals. But with Ronin, I think part of it is because it's in the real world. They don't give you any exposition whatsoever, because the movie just kind of starts like, and it feels like it's starting in the middle, right? The very first scene is, you see people gathering in a bar, and people, it, on the one hand, looks like they're doing kind of like everyday things, but on the other hand, you see that everybody seems to have some ulterior motive, or they're taking like really weird precautions, and you don't know exactly what's going on. And people are saying things and you don't understand exactly what they're talking about. Like when Natascha is talking to Sam, when they meet at the bar, she asks him about the man in the wheelchair, and there's no real context for this man in the wheelchair. You're like, you don't really know what they're talking about. And they don't really go to explaining this so-called man in a wheelchair, and you hear a reference to it, and you kind of start to understand that it's supposed to be a man that they had contacted in order to hire all of these professionals. That is the so-called man in a wheelchair. But at first I thought it was an actual man in a wheelchair, but as it turns out, that may not be the case. And I think I covered that in the trivia. So, I'll try to remember to talk about that in trivia, but the man in the wheelchair may not be a literal man in the wheelchair. It may, they may be referring to somebody figuratively, and basically it's a way of referencing the hiring agency. So the man in the wheelchair is apparently the hiring agency that one would go to if you needed to hire some either some ex-spies or some ex-military officers to engage in some like shady military action, or if you needed a soldier of fortune, you would go to this man in the wheelchair to hire them. So this is all just to say that the movie just kind of starts, and it takes a minute to kind of get your bearing and what's going on. It's not going to hold your hand. You're just going to have to pay attention to what they're saying and look at and watch the movie. You can't be on your phone or nothing. You have to pay attention, or this movie is going to lose you. So, so that's one of the things. I mean, the other thing about it is that you start to learn that it's going to be a heist movie, because they keep talking about this case that they're supposed to retrieve. They're supposed to steal a case. So in the stealing of this case, that they don't know what the case is or what's in the case or anything like that. They don't give you any information, and they don't even know when and where the case is. At least not initially. They have like a vague idea, but they don't have like a concrete idea. And so, you know, they don't know, and you don't know as the audience. You don't know. There's very little that they let you know as an audience member. Like, they'll only tell you as much information as the antagonist of the story knows. So that's that. But kind of later on, as the movie goes, the storytelling gets more conventional. But as the movie starts off, you're starting off with very little information. So that's one of the things that kind of makes this movie a little bit hard to follow in the beginning. But then as the movie continues on, you start to learn more and more. So I'm not saying that that's my favorite part of the movie. I'm just kind of laying out, I guess, my journey in watching this movie. So one of my favorite parts that I did like is that, in the very beginning of the movie, they need to get supplies. So one of the things that they need some arms. They need some automatic weapons. They need grenade launchers. They need all of the weapons. They go to the arms dealer, who is Spence, and Spence played by Sean Bean, and he's supposed to be the guy that you go to get weapons from. And Spence fashions himself as an ex-SAS operative. He was a member of the British Armed Forces, and he talks a big game about tactics and whatnot. And he was a guy you're supposed to go to, and he is able to get weapons, but the deal is so shady and so fraught with danger, because you're dealing in this world. You just can't go to a person and buy stuff, right? It's not like a drug deal. This is worse than a drug deal, and worse in the sense that the people that you're buying product from, they don't want to give up the product. They would rather just rob you for your money. And the people with the money are going to try to rob the arms from the person who has the arms. So that's how messed up the deal is. And so they go to this area in France. I don't know. It's off a wharf or something. I think they're near the water or whatever. Cause I remember there's a bridge, and there's a tunnel. So they go to this at night, go to this area, and they're supposed to be doing this deal. And this car drives up. Our heroes, as such as they are, they get out the car, and the arms dealer, Sean, I was calling him Sean, the arms dealer, Spence, played by Sean, he, goes over to the back of the car, and he's like cagey and nervous, like really nervous. Like it's almost, you almost get a sense that this is his first arms deal, and goes over to the back of the car, where they're supposed to be getting the weapons, and, supposed to be checking the inventory to make sure they have all the weapons. And for some reason, they don't have all the weapons. The guy says that the other weapons are in the other car, and the other car is at the end of this tunnel. And Sam was like, the guys that are there is pretty much all the guys except for the technician. So it's Sam, Vincent, Spence, the arms dealer, and Larry, the driver. And so Larry stays in the car that brought them, and everybody else is out of the car. So, like, Sean is already, not Sean, but Spence is already at he's supposed to be walking down, following the other guys into the tunnel, to get to the end of the tunnel where the other car is hitting, where the rest of the weapons that they're supposed to be buying is at. In the meantime, Larry, the driver, he's transferring the other weapons, the weapons that was in the first car. Cause everybody left the first car alone. So he's transferring the weapons from the first car to his car. And then, Sam and Vincent, they're kind of hanging back. They're not going into the tunnel. Sam does not like this setup. Sam is like, this is a great place for ambush. They're going to try to ambush us. They probably got snipers around, and it's like, don't, because Vincent wants to cover Spence. Vincent wants to follow Spence, go into the tunnel with Spence, and Sam's like, don't go in the tunnel. I don't like that's a bad setup. But Vince's like, just watch my back. So Vincent goes to cover Spence. Sam's looking around. He's hanging back. He's outside of the tunnel, looking around to see if if there's anybody around that's going to mess up this deal. And it turns out there is. He sees a sniper on the bridge. He takes a shot at the sniper, kills the sniper, and then everybody starts shooting. Everybody is like, and then the way Spence is shooting is like he's shooting wild. It's like he just, he's actually hitting the people. But it doesn't seem like it. It seems kind of wild. And it's like, so everybody's shooting. They're able to either hit or kill the other arms dealers, and then they see the police that are coming. So they all get into the car that Larry brought the car forward. They get into the car and they, race away from the police, and they're able to get away. And Spence is kind of happy because, even though they didn't get all of the weapons that they had ordered, they at least got some of the weapons, and they didn't have to spend any money to get it. But it's not like he was messing up the deal. The deal was messed up in the first place. Those other arm dealers was basically setting it up to steal money and drive away. And it didn't work out in their favor. But that was a tense moment in the movie, because that's when you start to see what was going on. You just start to see the shape of what was happening. And that's when the tension was like kind of dialing it up some. One of my other favorite parts is when it was kind of a monologue by Robert De Niro playing Sam. And that was what I did at the beginning of the show when he was talking about, because he was asking about the case. He asks about this case throughout most of the movie. It's like, what's in the case? And Deidre is not telling him what's in the case. It's like, you don't need to know. And then that's when Sam was like, well, if I don't need to know, if it's going to be amateur night, then you need to pay me $100,000 up front. Right. And so I like that showdown between him and Deidre. And then like right after that, there's another showdown between Sam and Spence. Cause Spence is like, he's talking about how he was this, this big army guy or whatever. And he's more braggadocious than everybody else there. And the thing about Sam is that he's kind of testing everybody. He doesn't really approach, he's testing most people. Like, he doesn't really approach the driver. He doesn't test Vincent too much. Like, he asked Vincent a bunch of questions, and I think that Vincent answers the question satisfactorily. I think in Vincent, he sees, like a kindred spirit. Like, he kind of sees where Vincent is from the get-go, because Vincent is not being particularly pretentious, but he could tell when Vincent is talking in code. So I think he respects Vincent for that. Like, Vincent is not answering questions directly, which is something that you probably do if you used to be in some kind of spy organization. So he's not answering questions directly either. So I think he understands and direct Vincent, but I think that's in a way of testing Vincent. He's asking a bunch of questions. With, the technician, one of the things that he does is that he kind of sets up these coffee mugs, these metal coffee mugs. He sets them up on a counter. And then he's kind of talking casually to Gregor, the technician. And he accidentally knocks this coffee cup down, and Gregor catches it instantly. He has these incredible reflexes. So I think through that, he knows that Gregor is a real deal. Like, Gregor is, like, he's not revealing anything about himself other than that he's confident. And I think the thing that Gregor might be revealing is that he definitely worked for somebody. Like, he worked for some organization. He was somewhere. But it's not like Sam is not trying to figure out exactly which organization these other operatives used to work for. I think he's just trying to test if they're competent, if they are who they say they are, or at least if they are what they pretend to be, or, cause they got hired into this gig. So they had to have some type of resume, or something to show that they're competent in doing what they're hired to do. And one of the tests that he does is that, and this is one of my favorite parts, along with that speech, because it happens right around that same scene when Sam tests Spence. Sam is triggered by Spence because Spence is like, he goes up to this chalkboard and there's kind of like a diagram of the street because their plan is kind of sort of taking shape. And it shows that the guys with the case, they're supposed to be going down this one street. And so Spence goes up, he draws a diagram. He draws a diagram where you have two gunmen, presumably two of the people in the room. They'll be across from each other, across the street. And they're supposed to be creating a kill zone. And it's like Sam is offended by what Spence has drawn as a diagram. And he goes up to it's like a whiteboard. He erases it away and he says, draw it again. You're such a big shot. Draw it again. And it's kind of a weird thing. And Spence is, weirded out and confused by it. And so Sam, he takes he takes the marker and he redraws the diagram that Spencer drew. He drew the street and then he drew the two shooting positions, which is directly across from each other. He's like, is that your big plan? Have two shooters across from each other. And when they start firing their weapons, they shoot each other as well as the car. That was your big plan. He starts to push up on Spence and Spence is like, you need to back off. And Sam was like, what are you going to do? You're the one with the gun. Cause at the time, Spence just so happened to have his gun in his holster or in his belt or something like that. He's like, what are you going to do? You're the one with the gun. What are you going to do about it? And then, he backed Spence into a table where Sam had earlier placed a hot cup of coffee, like right on the edge of the table. And Sam backs Vince into this table and in doing so knocks over this hot cup of coffee. The coffee splashes on Spence's leg. And then when that happened, Sam quickly gets Spence hemmed up. He gets them all tied up in his arms and whatnot and got him bent over and he's able to disarm Spence. And he's like, you going to tell me about an ambush? I ambushed you with a cup of coffee. So that was a great part. So that was just basically Spence, like kind of testing the competency of his coworkers and proving that Spence was incompetent. And then he goes on to, where he's saying, because he asks, during that whole thing, he was asking Spence about the SAS. He was like, so what regiment did you serve? Where are you from? And then he was like, so what color is the boathouse on Heathrow? And Heathrow, I guess I'm getting that name right. Anyway, I think that's the city where the SAS train or is their headquarters or whatnot. And Spence does not answer this question right away. He's like fumbling with the answer. And Sam kept asking, what color is the boathouse? What color is the boathouse? And Spence can't answer the question. And so basically the result is that Deirdre, she decides that Spence is probably not competent. And so she gives him a little bit of money and basically kicks him off the team. So the funny thing about this is that in this movie, Sean Bean is not killed. He is kicked off the team. So I guess a win for Sean Bean. After Spence is kicked off the team, one of the other members asks Sam, so what is the color of the boathouse in Heathrow or whatever that place is? I think I'm messing up the name of the place. But they asked him what is the color of the boathouse. And Sam was like, how the fuck should I know? So Sam didn't know. So actually Spence could have said any color and it would have been correct because Sam doesn't know, but it was a trap. The question was a trap. The question was to see if Spence would say anything, and Spence didn't say anything. So it kind of exposed Spence as a kind of a fraud. He was probably just an arms dealer, and he probably never served in the SAS, or maybe he served in some fashion in the British military, but he wasn't like special forces. So anyway, that's how Spence got kicked off the team. In this movie, there were a number of car chases. I think they were like 3 or maybe 4 car chases. A couple of them were kind of short. They were kind of nice. They, usually when the police is chasing, they kind of get away pretty quickly. And I think there were 2 of those where they were being chased by police, and not particularly, thrilling and fantastical. It was just, they were short chases. But then there's like 2 major car chases, and they were really nice. I will say that sometimes it feels like the car chases are going a little long, especially the car chase at the climax. So the car chase at the near the climax of the film, that was a little long. Like they just a little bit, but it was realistic. At least it felt realistic, and it felt thrilling, and it felt, and when you have car chases that take place in European cities, they have a very different feel to it than you have car chases in America. In America, you have these big open streets, these giant highways, these wide, even if you're not on a highway, you got these wide streets in the city. But in Europe, they got these tiny streets. They got small cars and small streets. And even with the size of, even though the cars that they have are small, it's, the streets still feel claustrophobic as small as they are. And so that feeling, that claustrophobic feeling, that helps with making the street chases more thrilling or thrilling in that type of way because of the speed and the tininess of the streets. It's like, aren't they going to hit these other cars? Isn't that car going to hit that wall? Right? There's a lot of that going on. But I did enjoy the car chases. So you had the car chase and the main car chase in the middle. That's what happens is that they pull off the plan to steal the case from the group that had the case. And it's one of those cases where the case is handcuffed to the guy that's, I guess the guy that's in charge of the case. He's handcuffed to the case. There's a lot of sneaking around. And then after the sneaking around, there's a lot of shooting. And there's a lot of confusion going on. And then in that confusion, the tech guy was responsible for actually stealing the case. And what happened was he stole the case and then tossed the case to Ronin and Larry the driver. And so I think it was Larry the driver. Anyway, so they have the case, and then Sam, he's kind of looking at the case, and he realized that it's like paint is coming off of the case, and he realized that the case is fake. So he throws the case away. The case explodes. And, but everybody gets away. And so they realize that Gregor has stolen the case. The technician was responsible for stealing the case, and he does, but he steals the case for himself. He doesn't steal it for the group. And as it turns out, he was planning on double crossing the group the entire time. He wants to steal the case and then sell it to a buyer, and he can keep all the money for himself, because whoever is buying the case is willing to spend a lot of money for this case, and he doesn't want to split it 5 ways. He wants to keep it all to himself. And so he's trying to, he's made arrangements to sell this case to this Russian buyer. And the weird thing, and actually the Russian buyer actually helps him, double cross the team, because as what we find out, as we go through the movie, is that the fake case that he tosses to Sam and Larry was provided by the guy that Gregor was supposed to be selling the case to. So apparently they cooked up the plan to team up and steal the case from to steal it from the people, the stealers, to steal it from the other thieves, to double cross the team and steal the case from the other thieves. I think that's how it goes. So then the movie turns from trying to get a case from these other guys to trying to find Gregor and steal the case back from Gregor, the guy who double crossed them. And the whole movie turns to looking for Gregor, finding Gregor, and then getting the case back from Gregor. So that car chase and that double cross, one of my favorite parts. There's one scene there's one part where they get close to Gregor and they get close to getting the case from Gregor. And in doing so, Sam gets shot. It's like Sam and Vincent, they try to corner Gregor, and Gregor is able to get away. And then there are these other guys that are trying to get to Gregor, and Sam and Vincent get into this gunfight with these other guys, and Sam gets hit. So and Vincent takes them to a guy he knows in France, where they can get the bullet out, because obviously they can't go to the hospital. Now, the guy's not a doctor. He just has a place where they can, operate on getting the bullet out of Sam. So that scene, that operation scene is one of my favorite parts, because Sam is telling them, he basically is telling Vincent specifically how to get the bullet out of him. It's like, he's like laying on the table, and the guy that they go to, he has like some operating equipment, like he has scalpels and clamps and stuff like that. So he has the tools that a surgeon might use, but he's not a surgeon himself. And so you had Sam laying on the table, and and he has a mirror set up so he can see what Vincent is doing. And so he tells Vincent to, make an incision here, reach in with the clamps there, hold the wound open with these clamps here. Like, he's telling them how to do it while Vincent is doing all of the stuff with cutting. It's like he's doing this with there's no anesthetic. There's no local anesthetic, and obviously no general anesthetic. So he's in all the pain. Like, this dude is like cutting him and digging into him, and he's in all the pain, and he has to coach him to just like, I can't imagine the type of pain tolerance that you have to have in order to do that. The other thing about this is that whenever there's a scene like this, when you have like the hero basically going through extraordinary means to heal himself, it's a call. I feel like all of these scenes are a callback to Rambo. I can't remember if it happens in First Blood or if it happens in Rambo First Blood Part 2. I'm pretty sure it's in Rambo First Blood Part 2, where Rambo, he gets hurt, and then he has to basically do some kind of weird field operation to himself. And then he takes a knife and he superheats it and he cauterizes the wound and he screams into the night. I feel like every time I see somebody doing some type of field operation, I go back to that scene. I think they do it in both Predators movies. I can't remember if they did it in Predator 1, the first Predator, but I clearly remember in Predator 2 where the Predator had his arm chopped off, and so he had to do a field operation where he's crushing up ceramics and making it to a paste and then putting it on the stub of his arm and screaming into the night. And so I feel like that's a callback to Rambo also. So in this movie, it's not the hero that's actually doing the operation himself. He is directing somebody to do the operation. And so Vince has to keep clamp open with one hand and then dig into Sam's body with the other clamp. And he finds the bullet. He misses the bullet the first time, then he gets it the second time, pulls it out. And then after the operation, Sam asks Vincent, do you think you can sew me up? And Vincent says, yeah, I can sew you up. And this is good. I'm gonna pass out now. Right. So that was a fun part. I like that part. So my last favorite part, and this is my favorite part because whenever I think of this movie, this is the part that I think about the most. So there's a part where they're kind of zeroing in on the buyer that Gregor was supposed to sell the case to, because at this point in the movie, well, actually, they didn't kill Gregor. The buyer kills Gregor because remember I said earlier is that you're dealing in you're in a situation where you're trying to sell something to somebody, but they would just as soon as kill you and take the product as buy it from you. And that's basically what happened to Gregor. So in this interesting part, what happens is that Gregor had hired the guy that's buying this case. He is a big shot, but he's also really into, like, I'm not exactly sure if it's his daughter or his wife or his girlfriend, or maybe he's just managing this skater. So it's a Olympic gold medalist, and she's also a world champion figure skater. And like, she has her own show. So she has a solo show. Everybody goes to the show so they can watch this figure skater. And it's weird because I don't know if I've even seen a commercial for a figure skater over here. I remember there used to be a lot of figure skating shows when I was growing up. And the show that I remember the most is that they used to advertise Dorothy Hamill all the time. Dorothy Hamill would go on tour. And then, like, when she come to your town, you could go to the arena and watch her skate. And they still have shows like Disney on Ice where they're just reenacting some of their cartoons or their animated movies. But I have not seen an advertisement for just a figure skater show, just like an Olympic or world champion figure skater, like, or even a team, like going on tour where you can go to the arena and watch them skate. So, I mean, yeah, sure, there are competitions, but just to watch them skate for fun I haven't seen it. I'm not going to say it's not done or that they don't do it anymore. I hesitate to say that. Maybe it's just not in my algorithm to see where they're advertising it, but I have not seen anybody or, talk about it or write about it or seen any commercials for it. I feel like it's not something that I would go to, but I feel like that's missing. Cause I don't see the commercials for it anymore. Like, I see the commercial for that feng shui, that Falun Gong. I think that's what it's called. Whatever that play is, that Chinese play is, that dance routine or whatever that show is that they do. So when you're driving down a highway, you see the billboards for it. So I know that that's happening. But I don't see billboards for ice skaters. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, so this arms dealer, well, I don't even know if he's an arms dealer. He's just some big shot. We'll just refer to him as a gangster. So he's a gangster, but he's also sponsoring this figure skater. And she has a big arena show and they're in the arena. And so she's out there on the ice. She's skating on the ice. Meanwhile, she's being covered by this sniper. The sniper was hired by Gregor. Basically, Gregor and the sniper, they're in radio contact. And Gregor is trying to sell the case to the big shot, who helped him to facilitate stealing the case from his other team, like the former team, the people that were stealing the case in the first place, stealing the case from Sam and them. So he's, as per their deal, apparently, he's going to sell the case to this dude. And I don't know, for whatever reason, the dude is being kind of cagey about it. He doesn't want to buy the case from Gregor, because everybody's a bad guy here. So, how do you trust anybody? And remember, I said one of the themes of this movie is trust. I think I said that. But anyways, nobody seems to trust anybody. And so, like, Gregor obviously doesn't trust that the arms dealer dude is going to give him the money. So that's why he has the sniper on the figure skater. So he has it set up where it's like, if you don't give me the money, my sniper is going to kill your figure skater. And I have to call them in 30 seconds on the radio. And if I don't call him, they're going to kill your figure skater. And in the meantime, the big shot, he's pointing his gun at Gregor. So Gregor is acting like, he's not afraid because he knows that if he gets killed, then that the ice skater will get killed. And apparently the big shot dude cares a lot about the ice skater. But what Gregor doesn't understand is that the big shot dude cares more about the case than anything in the world. So Gregor's counting down like, okay, the ice skater is going to die in 10 seconds if I don't call. The ice skater is going to die in 20 seconds if I don't call. The ice skater is going to die in 10 seconds I don't call. And then 10 seconds pass by. He doesn't call. And at the same time that his sniper shoots the ice skater, the guy shoots Gregor. Like now Gregor's dead, right? and the guy takes the case because, he does not care about the ice skater enough to pay for this case that he agreed to pay for. And so now his ice skater dead. Now he has to get out with the case. So in the meantime, I still haven't gotten to the favorite part that I was supposed to be telling you about. So in the meantime, Sam and Vincent are looking for this buyer, and Vincent had previously talked to one of the guys he's like a security guard, or maybe he's just one of the employees at the stadium. And, he chops it up with this guy earlier in the movie to get some information from him. The guy shares, what little bit of information he knew about the big shot that was in charge, that was basically managing the ice skater. And then I think through context clues, Vince and Sam figure out that he's the guy that's trying to buy the case. And they leave. They do, go on whatever little adventure. Then they come back to this same dude. And the guy is kind of like doing a security role. So he's trying to, he's guarding this access point. And Sam and Vincent need to go do this access point in order to catch up with the big shot or whatever. And so they know they're going to have to knock this dude out. They're going to beat up this dude in order to get past him to go to the access point. And this is my favorite part. My favorite part is when Vincent was like, he looks to Sam and he says, "You do it because I can't do this. I couldn't live with myself." Right. So Sam goes over to the dude and knocks him out so they can get past him to go and continue on the mission. And I call that one of my favorite parts because for whatever reason, this is the part that lives with me from watching this movie. It is like, it's followed me through the decades. When I think of this movie, I think of this part in particular. Because, Vincent's supposed to be a cold-hearted operative. He apparently was a part of some intelligence agencies at one point or another, but he had a soft spot for this dude. He cared about this dude, and it pained him to have to beat up this dude. So he knew that this dude was going to have to get beat up. He said he couldn't live with himself to beat up this dude, and he asked Sam to do it so they could continue their mission. And so that was just fun. That was just a fun thing that happened in the movie. So the resolution of the movie is that you find out that like everybody is supposed to be like an ex-government operative. You didn't necessarily know what service or what agency they used to work for. You only knew that they worked for a government. Vincent probably worked for either the French military or the French spy agency. You had Gregor, who worked for some Eastern European spy agency or military, but you didn't know which one. But you could see in his competency that he worked for somebody. And you had not Vince, but you had Sam and Larry. Both of them are Americans, and they had worked for some American agency, whether it was the military or the CIA or the FBI or whatever. You didn't know, but you knew they worked for someone. But like at the end of the movie, for whatever reason, I guess Sam had gotten sweet on Deirdre. They did share a kiss one time. And so I guess Sam had some kind of affection for her. So he didn't want her to get hurt. So at one point, Vincent and Sam realized that they had been double crossed at some point by Deirdre, and not necessarily by Deirdre, but by Deirdre's boss. So Deirdre's boss was Seamus, the Irishman. And at some point, the Irishman basically started double crossing the whole team. And because Deirdre works for Seamus, she basically has to go along with whatever Seamus is doing. And at one point, Sam had an opportunity to kill Deirdre so that he could get to Seamus. But he hesitates, he doesn't kill Deirdre, and then Deirdre basically leads him onto this fantastical car chase. It was the last car chase in the movie, and that was the one that lasted a little too long. But it was indeed thrilling. They were driving on the wrong side of the street and doing all of the things that you see in car chases, except exploding, I think. But Sam had a chance to kill her, and he didn't take it. And at the end of the movie, Deirdre is supposed to be picking up Seamus. So what happened is that Seamus was finally able to get the case, and he was going towards Deirdre, and Sam catches up with Deirdre before Seamus gets to her, and Sam tells Deirdre to drive away, just get away from here, get away. And he's basically telling her to get away so that she'll be safe. And she doesn't want to do it because, she wants to be on mission. And then Sam finally reveals the truth. This is the true twist of the film. The twist of the film is that Sam is not a former CIA agent. Sam was a current CIA agent on a mission. He says that Seamus was the target all along. He says, get out of here. Seamus is the target. This has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with the case. We came here for Seamus. Don't you see? I never left. And then when he said that, she understood and she drove away because she realized that Seamus was the target and Sam didn't want her to get caught up into it. And so they catch up with Seamus and, they neutralize him, as they say in these things. Sam is neutralized, and I forgot what happened to the case. Somebody gets the case. I don't remember who gets it. But the funny thing about it is that Sam never finds out what's in the case. The audience never finds out what's in the case. We never know what's in the case that everybody had to die for. What a world Olympic champion figure skater had died for. Nobody finds out why. It's just that. And that's interesting. That's an interesting thing about MacGuffins. There are generally two types of MacGuffins. The first is the Hitchcockian MacGuffin. And I'm sure you've heard people explain it before, but a MacGuffin is an object, a person, place, or thing that both the hero and the villain, or the protagonist and the antagonist, are both after this object, this person, place, or thing. And it's just there to move the plot along. And Hitchcock kind of developed that concept. I'm pretty sure it's been used throughout history, but he had concrete ideas of what a MacGuffin is supposed to be. And his idea, a MacGuffin shouldn't be important at all. It should just be a thing that everybody's chasing, but you're just using it for plot and character development, and that the object itself should have no meaning. So it, like, another example of what I like to call a Hitchcockian MacGuffin would be the suitcase in Pulp Fiction, where we never know what's inside the suitcase, except whatever it is, it's shining a light on people, but we don't know because it's not important. The important things is the relationship between the characters and the situations that the character get into because of the case, but the case itself has no meaning. Now, the other version of a MacGuffin is basically the same concept, except George Lucas believed that the object should have meaning. It should mean something to the plot. And so whenever he has a MacGuffin in his movies, and Great examples are like in Indiana Jones, they're after the Ark of the Covenant, or in Star Wars, they're after the plans inside R2-D2. And these cases, the MacGuffin absolutely has meaning. In Indiana Jones, the Ark, has all of this power, and it does this fantastic thing at the end of the movie. And in Star Wars, the R2 unit, everybody's after the R2 unit, but they're really after the plans inside R2. And the plans are what they use to find a weakness in the Death Star, and they're able to use it to destroy the Death Star. So the MacGuffin has meaning. And so those are the two different philosophical thoughts on what a MacGuffin is. And in this movie, it happens to be the Hitchcock version, where you don't know and it's not important, because the important thing is that the object of the movie was all along, was for Sam to neutralize Seamus. And that's what happened at the end of the movie. So that was Ronin. And I get it this time. It was better on the second watch. And sometimes movies be like that. Sometimes you gotta watch a movie twice in order to get it. So that's it for our favorite part. Let's go to the trivia. All right, I got the top 10 trivia for this movie, Ronin. And so I'm pretty sure that it's all true. I got it from IMDb. So if it's wrong, it's them, not me. It's their fault. So the first piece of trivia is a total of 80 automobiles were destroyed during filming. There were a lot of car chases. Well, not a lot of car chases. There were long car chases. Like, I think in total there were maybe 3 or 4 car chases, but like 2 of the car chases were very long. The last car chase was a very long car chase where you were starting to get tired of watching the car chases near the end. So apparently they destroyed 80 cars, during filming all of these car chases. To make it look like Robert De Niro and Natascha McElhorne were actually driving during the car chase, right-hand drive cars were used, with the passenger side made to mirror the real controls. The cast members then mimicked the stunt driver's movements. So I'm not sure how often that's done. And I know that a lot of times that the actors aren't actually driving. Usually the car is being towed, and the actors kind of mimic the driving. But in this case, I guess the stunt drivers were actually in the car driving the car, and the actors just kind of had to act like they were driving. So that's one way of doing it. Skip Sudeth. Oh, this is the thing that I was telling you before. So this is one of the unique things about the movie, is that Skip Sudeth wanted to do his own stunt driving during the car chase. So the guy that's playing the driver, that's playing the automobile expert or the driving expert, is apparently a driving expert because he wanted to do his own stunt driving. And John Frankenheimer, the director, agreed to it. And he told Sudeth, "I don't want to see any brake lights." So that was fun. So it was like, if you're gonna be your own stunt driver, then you better give me some good stuff. The talk about, this is something else I alluded to earlier. The talk about the man in the wheelchair is referencing the book, The Bourne Identity. It's written in 1980 by Robert Ludlum. The man in the wheelchair was M. Chernak, the mercenary broker who Jason Bourne killed. So that's what that was a reference to. And even though I read The Bourne Identity and I watched all 3 Bourne Identity movies, I don't have a memory of any reference to the man in the wheelchair. And The Bourne Identity is a thick book. It's a thick boy. Remembering details of that book on just reading it one time would be a feat. 300 stunt drivers were employed to give the final chase scene the required amount of metal crunching realism. And I believe that. So yeah, it was, as I keep mentioning, these chases were a lot. The brown Mercedes-Benz used by Vincent and Sam are a rare high-performance 450 SEL 6.9 version of the W116 S-Class. The 6.9 badge refers to the car's engine size of 6.9 liters, and in the late 70s, it was the fastest and one of the most expensive saloon cars money could buy. Only about 7,000 were made over a 6-year production run. So in this movie, they used a somewhat rare high performance Mercedes-Benz. I don't think it got crashed, but I do remember seeing the car in the movie. I think they made sure not to crash that car. According to car stunt coordinator Jean-Claude Laniez, sorry if I mispronounced that last name, in the Driving of Ronin featurette, the chief of police of Paris basically gave the production carte blanche for filming the stunts. Let them do what they want. No restrictions. They can do what they want. So I guess that's what you want to hear from a city. If you're filming in a city, that's what you want. 3 of the actors in this movie have played the antagonists in 3 separate James Bond movies. Sean Bean in GoldenEye from 1995, Michael Lonsdale in Moonraker from 1979, and Jonathan Pryce in Tomorrow Never Dies from 1997. These 3 actors do not appear together in any of the scenes of this film. So, yeah, you had a bunch of James Bond guys. Sean Bean's character claims to be an SAS, a British Special Air Service veteran based in Hereford. That's the city I was looking for that word. I kept calling it Heathord or something. I kept messing it up. But Hereford, that's the place. In Bravo 20 from 1999, Bean played an SAS sergeant and mentions that Hereford is his home base. Hereford, on the English and Wales border, is the site of the SAS regimental headquarters known as Stirling Lines. Lastly, the announcer had announced that Natascha Korolova was the double Olympic champion and 3 times world champion. This is the fictional ice skater that was shot and killed in the movie. And so her character was played by real life light skater Katrina Witt. And she was also in real life a double Olympic champion from 1984 and 1988. And she had 4 world championships, 1984, 1985, 1987, and 1988. So that's it for the trivia. Now let's see what the critics thought. The critics have it at 70 cents. The audience has it at 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. And on IMDb reviews, it has it at 7.2 out of 10. Rob Gonsalves from Rob's Movie Vault wrote, "A beautiful piece of work. Elegant without being ponderous, complex without being complicated." And that is true. I think that's another reason that I like this movie, is that at least I like it now more than the first time that I watched it. Is that it has a little bit of complexity, but not so complex that it's overly confusing. Like the only thing that was kind of throws you off is like the beginning of the movie, where it kind of just starts and you don't know where you are. But then as the movie kind of goes along, you start to have an understanding of it. And it doesn't take too long. It happens fairly quickly, but you get an understanding of what's going on, what the deal is. And then once you understand what the deal is, basically it's a caper. It's a bunch of mercenaries trying to steal something. That's basically all it is. And then one of the mercenaries turns out to double cross his his co-workers. He double crosses his co-workers and tries to steal the case for himself, right? And tries to sell the case on his own. And then what actually happens is that he gets double crossed by the person that he's trying to sell the case to. And, you know, it's a lot of shooting. It's not super complicated. You can definitely follow it. And I had fun with that. Zaki Hassan from Zaki's Corner wrote, weaves a complex and convoluted tapestry of danger, betrayal, and a seemingly unending stream of car chases. Now, I can't be mad at that, because, as I said earlier, I didn't glom onto the movie the first time that I watched it. So I can see how it can be seen as convoluted. This movie, if you haven't seen before, you may have to watch it a couple times in order to get it. You definitely have to pay attention. It's one of those movies. Ed Travis from Synapse wrote, I wasn't prepared to be absolutely blown away by the storytelling, style, character work, and quite cool that Ronin truly represents. This isn't just a solid state 90s spy thriller. It's a true entry into espionage annals. And that's another thing that I forgot to mention in my favorite parts is the acting in this movie is so good, right? It's so, cause they all draw you in. They're all incredibly competent actors. And then I just love a competent actor. And so it was great just watching these people work their craft. That's what you see in this movie. It's like the manicness of Sean Bean playing his arms dealer character, or the coolness of Sam, Robert De Niro's character, or the coldness of Deirdre, Natascha's character. And that coldness where it's like, you could tell by the manner in which, she moves, is that it's like she's been like a fighter all of her life. And it's like when Natascha and Sam when Deirdre and Sam have to go like undercover, in order to scope out the people who had the case, in order to scope out the ops, right? Deirdre has to learn how to be feminine, right? Cause it's actually a little bit difficult for her. And it's like, Natascha acting really shines through on that. And it's like, they all were fantastic. Like, even, I'm saying even, like he's not a great actor, but particularly Jonathan Pryce. Normally when I see him, he's playing a super posh British person. But then in this movie, he plays like an Irish gangster, right? And it's like, I wasn't prepared for that, right? It's like, oh, he can do other accents. Like, he doesn't have to be a posh British dude. He can be a grimy Irish gangster. So, the acting in this movie is definitely one of my favorite parts. And I meant to point that out earlier. So, and I think that's the reason why I liked it. Like, why I knew it was a good movie the first time I watched it. I knew it was good, but like I said, it just didn't click with me at that time. And now I feel it coming together so much better watching it the second time than it did with the first time. Jim Judy from Screenlit wrote, a somewhat muddled yawn that's more tease than delivery. And I can understand that, because I probably felt that way the first time I watched this movie. I feel differently now. Finally, Ronin is, as of this recording, available on Prime Video. Now, I'm not certain, well, yeah, I do know, because like I said, I did finally watch Strange Days. It was messy, but I did get to watch it, and I can't wait to talk about it. So that'll be something I talk about next week. Yeah, I had another movie in the holster just in case I wasn't able to to cover it, but as it turns out, I will. So you can follow us on Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok, Instagram, and sometimes Twitter. Please contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlickcinema.com. Please rate and review on your favorite podcast app. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like or subscribe or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. One last time, if you like the show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlick Cinema, the podcast. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. hug your loved ones, and if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.